Hey guys, in this video I'd like to show you a proper gun mount of your shotgun, specifically for Olympic Skeet. That's where you start off with your gun at the waist level and then put it onto your shoulder, mount it onto your shoulder once the bird is out. I'm going to just go through some of the basics in terms of where do you start, what techniques you can use, how do you do certain bits of corrections, and how do you make sure that your gun is always pointing and is always mounted in a consistent manner. In Olympic Skeet or any sort of clay shooting, it is essential that you have a consistent gun mount. It is because at that point you don't really have to, your technique has to be so good that at the point of shooting you're not really thinking where your gun is, because your gun is then automatically pointing where you're looking, where your eyes are. Obviously this technique takes a little bit of practice. I have done also a little bit of practice. Also, I would also admit that I'm not the best or the most perfect, but in the period of 8 months that I've been shooting, I have learned a couple of things and I'd like to share them with you. The first and the foremost thing is, okay, the gun is empty. These are practice cartridges. These are not real cartridges, so it's all fine. I'm sure you do not have any live ammunition inside your gun when you're in the apartment or in your house. All right, with that said, let's work with it and let's go through some of the basics. When you're playing Olympic Skeet, this is the point where you start. Let me show it to you from the side again. This is where the gun level is. Typically, this is identified and pointed out by a yellow strip which is available on your shooting vest, and that's where the lower point of the stock has to be touching. It cannot be here, that's too high. You could start low, but then again, that is the amount of more travel that you will have to move the gun before it is mounted on the shoulder. It is for that reason I typically start with the top of the butt pad right below my pec muscle over here. So that's where I would start, leaning a bit in the front and keep my eyes on the target and slowly ease the gun and lock it there. Now, a couple of important things that are supposed to be taken care of when you are actually mounting a gun is, when you start off, the gun comes to your face and not the other way around. You do not cant your face like so or so or so. Your face has to be parallel in the sense that your eyes are parallel to the ground. So, and the gun just basically glides up. So if I start off here, notice my head doesn't move too much and my gun is simply pointed to exact same point. It is also important that when you're practicing this gun mount, that the mid bead, in this case that's how you see it's on at the middle part of my barrel, and the front bead, they have to line up in the sense that they cannot be off-centered, they have to be always in the same line. That's going to help you. It's obviously not so easy and you have to practice several times. I mean, on an average I'm practicing like 70 at least gun mounts every day, and that's how I've developed a little bit of technique. I would say it has definitely improved my shot a little bit, where I don't really focus on where my gun is pointing, and I just keep my eyes on the target. This is again a challenging part of mounting the shotgun, is because unlike other sports where you really mount the gun already and then shoot, you're actually aiming the target all the time in other sorts of shooting sports. But in clay shooting, you don't really aim, you just point and shoot. And at the same time, you have to keep your eyes on the target. Your gun, imagine that your target is at this point, your gun is, and it's moving in this direction, your barrel is going to be pointing a little bit in front of it. It's because the target is moving and it takes some time for the shot to reach the target. Therefore, if you imagine that this is the disc or the clay, you will always be pointing the gun a bit in front of it. It implies you have to measure the lead or the distance in front of the disc where you have to insert the barrel, and for that reason you always have to keep your eye on the clay. It therefore means that the bead of the gun is typically onto the periphery of your vision, and it is therefore important to develop this consistent gun mount all the time. And therefore, when you start off and you keep your gun always pointed in the same location, you look at the target, you never look down the barrel, you will never look down the barrel like so. It's always you look at the target. Slow and steady wins the race. It's always said. Always and always repeat the mount slowly, train your muscles, develop the muscle memory before you actually start going ballistic or start going extremely fast with your gun mounts. It's not going to help you. Practice it very slowly, count, and try to perfect it. What I do, for example, is I imagine that there's going to be bird coming from the low house for me on this side, so I would imagine it's going to be there. So I go onto my start point and I say pull, and imagine that the bird is coming out. I keep my eyes on the bird, I plant my gun so, and I keep looking at the bird, and then bam, at a particular lead. If you notice at this point, I'm not really making a lot of effort to have my right eye directly on top of the front rail here, and at the same time the beads are lined up. If you practice sufficiently, you don't really have to think about it, but it's something definitely that you will develop with practice. Try to count in the sense saying 1, 2, 3, 4, and at the point 4 I'm like really pulling the trigger. So I don't mount and move, I start moving with the bird and then finish my mount and insert point in front of the bird, and I'm pulling my trigger. There's a lot of techniques that you can follow through. For example, I sometimes mount the gun and then start moving, and sometimes look at the bird when I have time and then insert and pull the trigger. All of these things may differ from your style of shooting, but the easiest way is to practice this gun mount slowly, repeat it several times with pauses, do it slow, and then gradually develop speed. It also helps you build some musculature to handle the weight of the gun. As you can imagine, the gun is pretty heavy. It's 3.6 kilograms. So if you're practicing several mounts a day, it gets tiring, especially after a session where I've shot like 3 rounds, it's 75 rounds. I already start feeling the tiredness in my arms, and therefore building that fitness is also quite essential when developing the gun mount. Right, another quick thing that I'd like to tell also is a common problem of canting the gun. It implies that canting the gun, well, let me just first explain what that is. So that would be a good mount. Let me point to the barrel so that you can see my eyes right over the front rail and the beads are lined up. And the canting of the gun would be something like so, or so, depending upon how it fits how the gun is fitting to you. So the gun fit is extremely important for your case. The length of the shaft, the length of the rear shaft, and the height of your shaft here is very important in terms of fitting it perfectly to your face. So in my case, my gun has an adjustable stock over here in terms of you can move it up and down, and you can also change the angle at which your face sits on the gun. It's therefore essential that the length, the height, and the angle of your stock matches perfectly to your face setting. Therefore, for all beginners, I would say or recommend go for an adjustable stock. It's worth the investment. When you don't have the technique, it is essential that your gun fits you or you fit the gun, and eventually you have a proper technique. Things to look out for there are therefore, when you mount the gun, that your face is not over the stock like so, and your eyes are not angled to the ground. Your face is directly so, such that your eyes are parallel to the ground and you're looking directly down the barrel, and the beads line up. That's the most essential thing. Don't cant the gun, don't, exactly, that's all pretty much straightforward. As a golden rule, I mean, people follow this rule of thumb that the best length of the stock is the point at which where if you put the gun so onto your bicep muscle that your finger just reaches the trigger. However, it's not really something that you can, or it's not a hard and fast rule. If you look at several other champions who are shooting, this rule is just not extending to everyone. So choose a gun which fits you the best in the sense of following very simple parameters, that when you mount the gun, you don't have to cant your head so, and your head remains straight parallel to the field of view, and your eyes are parallel to the ground, and the gun fits perfectly to your face. Always and always bring the gun to your face and not the other way around. Don't bring the gun face to your gun, but the other way around. You should be looking at the target and just insert the gun right there, and you should be able to just match the trajectory of the target. It comes with technique, but it's something definitely worth investing time into. It's definitely a lot of fun. From the point I bought this gun almost 2 months ago until today, I believe I've done some improvements in my mount. I'm more confident with my mount, and I'm also hitting more targets. Alright, that's a short video on showing my techniques of how I've improved my shotgun mount. I hope that helps, and stay safe.